Frida McFadden, girl, you have done it again.
Hey, Queen. Girl, you have done it again. Constantly raising the bar for us all.
Never will I ever doubt that I know what's going on in a Frida McFadden book. Never will I ever think that I'm smarter than her and be able to guess the ending before it's revealed to me, because I am simply just the reader. I'm not the mastermind, and she is the only one so far who has really, like, humbled me in that regard. I started reading Frida McFadden's books this past summer, and I became a fan after just one book because she's that good, in my personal correct opinion. And I read Never Lie, which is, if you have trust issues, like, maybe don't read that one, but actually still do it because you already have trust issues. It's not going to mess you up too much. But I read that one, and I'm actually a fan of audiobooks now because of her as well. Before, I never really read or listened to audiobooks just because, to me, it feels like it takes away from, like, the movie aspect. Like, when you read, you can, like, imagine it in your head, and listening to it doesn't give me that same, like, imagination. Like, I don't know, the cognitive skills don't work as hard as they do than when I'm reading. But for these, for some reason, like, I didn't mind it, and I felt like I was still, like, hooked into the story. And the reason that I resorted to listening to audiobooks is because my library does not have actual books of hers, which is a crime. Like, I will be changing that because the taxes need to be doing something right. And so I listened to her audiobooks, and then a few weeks ago, I was walking around campus, and I saw these books at my campus library, which is literally, my campus is like a research library, so they have 4 floors of just research books and 2 measly bookshelves, and most of it have, like, book talk books on it, which most of them, like, I've already read, but these ones were there. And so I was like, so if you haven't read these books, go into it without knowing anything. Just keep your guard up. Just don't trust anything, not even yourself. And I actually read these in the wrong order. So this is the first book, and then it's The Housemaid's Secret, and then this is the third one, The Housemaid is Watching. And I read The Housemaid's Secret, so book 2 before book 1, and I didn't know that it was a series because I've, like, out of the few thrillers that I've read, it's never followed, like, one character. Like, this one, they follow Millie in all 3 books. And so I was like, wow, I've never, like, this is a series. I think that the books are written well enough that you can read them on their own, like, as standalones, and you don't necessarily have to read them in order. Like, I thought that I missed something, but really, it's not that big of a deal. Though I would suggest read them in order because then you can pick up on the Easter eggs that are fun to find. Like, I read this one first, and so Millie, she's obviously a housemaid, she's working for, like, rich people, and when she meets, like, Douglas Garrick, she says, I've gotten involved with my employer only one time before, and I will never ever go down that road again. I'd rather yank out my own tooth with a pair of pliers. And so I read that, and I remember thinking, okay, this is interesting. Like, we're getting a little backstory on her. I'd like to see how that went down. And little did I know, it's all in here. So yeah, when I was, like, re-looking through the books again, I saw that detail, and I was like, oh my god, like, wow, she was being serious. So yeah, go into these books not knowing what it's about at all. You might figure out that it's about a housemaid if you're smart like me, but even if you don't, you'll be fine. So for the sake of this review, I'm going to go through the books in order, starting with The Housemaid. And we follow the main character, Millie, who, quite simply, to put quite simply, is Mother. She is that girl, and everything that she made, like, all her decisions that she made, the choices, her judgment, I was like, these are all reasonable, logical, justifiable things that she decided to do, because especially looking at her background, like, or the environment that she came out of, like, her experiences, I mean, it all made sense. And that's the worst thing about this series is, like, if I could define it in, like, tropes, it would be wrong place, wrong time, because really that's what it was. Everything that happened to her, at first I was like, okay, 1 time is, you know, a fluke, 2 times coincidence, 3 times pattern, you're not saying, but really, like, Millie she had bad luck, because why were all these things happening to her? Like, first, she defends her friend, which, by the way, fake friend, for not calling her, not giving her a letter, not sending a gift basket. Like, that's the least you can do. She saved you from assault. She took care of your assault, as she should, and went to jail for you, and you just ghosted her. Like, I would be scared. Like, if I was that friend, knowing what Millie did for me, I would change my name, leave the country, because this is a final girl. Like, she gets things done at the end of the day, and if I were her, I would have came for it too. Honestly, all the decisions that Millie made sense, except, so the only decision that Millie made that I was seriously side-eyeing was her wanting to watch TV in the living room, because obviously she couldn't have a TV in that little closet that they stuffed her into. And so she went downstairs to the living room to watch TV, and I just knew, I was like, is it that serious? Because also she's watching Family Feud. Like, is that really enough to risk it all? Like, I get that she was kind of getting bored, but she went down there, and of course Andrew was there too. Like, ugh, what a creep. And even though I know that's his house, but still, like, go to sleep. Like, if you're really some billionaire, don't you need to sleep so you can work the next day to steal money from people, as billionaires do? But anyway, clearly he did his more evil, like, stuff in a different manner, if you know what I mean. So yeah, book 1 really set up as crazy wife, normal husband, brat daughter. Last one is honestly not a lie. Cecilia, watch your back. I would watch your peanut butter crackers that I will be making snacks for accidentally. Oh my god, I'm kidding. And yeah, like, this was just, they really set it up really well, because even though I knew, like, okay, something about this is not trustworthy, I still trusted it. And I'm just disappointed. Like, it was humbling, really. And then we get to the part where the plot twist happens. And by the way, I really like how the chapters are titled, like, Step 2, Naively Marry Sadistic Evil Man. Like, it added some good humor and into, like, obviously a crazy thing was happening. And yeah, which, let's talk about that. The plot twist of Andrew being psychotic, that has to be like a nightmare. Like, it really does. Like, you get married to some guy who is crazy, and like, he must have OCD or something, because he did all that just because she didn't get her roots touched up. Like,
what?
Okay. And then, like, he locks her up in that closet, and I knew it. Like, that closet was literally described as somebody trying to, like, scratch their way out. And I went into it being like, okay, what did they do to the past housemaid? Because I thought it was going to be one of those. But in fact, it was, like, a thing with, like, you know, obviously. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, you're this rich. Like, you know when they say rich people are just truly something else? Like, I truly believe it. Ideally, it sounds nice to, like, live in that type of family. And then I read, like honestly, non-fictional books like this. And I'm like, you know what? Life is good. Life actually isn't so bad after all. Like, my life is actually not so bad after all. Because this was crazy. Like, and then he's like, again, step 3, discover your husband is pure evil. Honestly, after reading this, I was like, no wonder Nina is on antipsychotics, because she didn't have a choice. Sometimes you just gotta go on antipsychotics. And it was just crazy. Like, he makes step 4, make the world believe you're crazy. I couldn't believe it. Like, after all that, I was like, what do you mean? Pluck out your hair strands, 400 count. Like, oh my god. And then everything just made sense. Like, the story of what Millie had heard about Nina, and everyone was like, oh, she tried to drown her daughter, but her husband was there to save the day. But really, that was just him. Like, you find out everything. And honestly, this is just a good, like, way. The lesson that you can take from this is just, somebody's life looks perfect. It's really not. And even if it is, it's not your business. Like, because I seriously doubt it. And then step 5, find out you're not crazy at all after all. Like, this was insane. I have no words. It was such a good plot line, though it did remind me of another book called The Last Mrs. Parrish. I read that one, and it was kind of similar to this, so I wasn't truly, like, jaw-dropped. But still, okay, now the plan that Nina comes up with Enzo, trying to make someone to replace her. I did not feel okay with that, because she purposely went after Millie because she was beautiful, and the main reason was that she was an ex-felon. I don't know the terminology, but I just think, like, is it really okay to be doing that? Especially if you knew the crime that she went in for. Like, that's not okay. And I'm glad that Enzo was able to, like, reason with her kind of and be like, okay, don't do this. But I guess she was just really desperate, and she wanted to get out of it and take her daughter with her. But still, like, I just think maybe find somebody who's more suited. But I'm glad that Millie was, like, she was up for the task, because honestly, she was not about to let some guy ruin her life. But also, because I read the second book, I was like, she's a final girl. Like, she's gonna take care of business. She's gonna do what needs to be done. And I knew, like Nina eventually comes to terms with, like, okay, maybe I should go back and, like, help her. But I knew, I was like, no, Millie's fine. And in fact, Nina, she's gonna come after you next, so watch your back. I just think that it was so evil that the reason that Nina puts Millie up into that closet room is so that, like, Andrew can start, like, what is it, like, conditional association? Like that Pavlov thing of, or associated conditioning. Like, he starts to see her in that room, so then he starts to see her as like ownership. Like, she says it in the book, and I was like, Nina, maybe get back on those antipsychotics, because what? And like, I just couldn't believe, like, how could you do that to someone else? Even if they're like, honestly, they need to be horrible. Like, I guess, yeah, I would say they need to have killed somebody, but they need to have killed somebody who actually deserved it.
What murder?
Like, I couldn't believe that. Like, that's the reason they put her in there. And then, like, Andrew does all that stuff to her, and I'm so glad that she makes him pluck out his teeth, do like the books on him until like he can't breathe, all that torture stuff.
I'm just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
And he was like begging her to let him go. Like, where's that same energy when you were doing that to her? It's exactly what he deserved. Okay, actually looking at this again, Nina does say that she hires Millie to kill her. She just doesn't know it. Like, okay, but still, like, that's traumatic. How can you make somebody go through that? Like, that's trauma. This was a 4-star read for me. I really enjoyed reading it. I was giggling, laughing, looking at my invisible camera at the audience while reading, which is all signs of me having a good time. But the only exception I had with this book, a loophole that I still don't understand, is the peanut butter. And you might be thinking, Miriam, what peanut butter? The deadly peanut butter allergy that Cecilia has. Like, my question is, why did Nina not tell Millie about it? Like, I get that she was just trying to make Millie think that she was crazy and really, like, just be annoyingly crazy about it. But the jar of peanut butter is already in the fridge, which is what Andrew did to, like, have that power dynamic that he was doing. And the thing is, Cecilia is, like, 9 or 10 years old. So I'm guessing that Nina was like, okay, she's old enough to be like, oh, this is peanut butter, I can't eat it because I'm allergic. And that's exactly what happened in the book. But if Millie ended up putting like peanut butter in like any of their other foods, because she made food for them every day, and it wasn't like obvious, and she didn't say, oh, there's peanut butter in here, she could have died. Like, Cecilia, as much as she was such a brat, like, she could have died, and Millie could have actually, like, the thing is, I don't care what happened to Cecilia. My girl Millie would have had to go back to prison or something. So I don't get that, and I just feel like that just doesn't line up with the character, the type of person that Nina was, because she did all this to, like, protect her daughter. Like, it was all just for Cecilia, and so that Andrew didn't do anything to her. That was the whole reason she stayed with Andrew for all these years. So I just think, like, as a mom, like, wouldn't you want to be more careful? Like, you wouldn't leave things up to chance when it came to your kids, right? And obviously Nina was that type of mom. So that just didn't make sense to me. Like, why didn't you just tell her? Like, you could have lied about something else. Like, don't bring your daughter into that, because it just could have ended really badly. Okay, book 2. This is the one where I was truly jaw-dropped because it was my first one of the Housemaid series that I read. And I honestly loved it. Like, I think I would give this one, I think I would still do 4 stars, just because for me, 5-star means I'm obsessed with it and I'm thinking about it for like days and weeks on end. But these ones, like, and that's mostly reserved for like fantasy books, to be honest. But still, it doesn't take away, like, this was really good. And you know, when she starts off as a housemaid again, and she's working for like this rich couple, and I remember thinking like, oh, I would kind of like to be a housemaid for a rich couple. And I quickly was like, okay, never mind, because the Amber, I think was her name, she was like, oh, can you take care of my daughter because I just got a manicure? Like, be so for real right now. And this one, it's like a few years after the first book, and I'm glad that Millie is like, she's trying to become like a social worker, I think, and so she's taking these college classes. And personally, if my employer was telling me, oh, skip your class so you can take care of my daughter, I would be like, okay, let me see that bonus check. Give me that bonus check, and yeah, I can take care of your daughter all day. Then we get to that part where Millie is like attacked by one of her neighbors, and it was so annoying, like reading that part in the book. Like, it was like the officer was like, oh, well, what were you wearing during the incident? Oh, like, what did he even do? Like, he just pushed you. Like, I just feel like this makes me feel like the police really don't care. Like, they have such a bad reputation because of these types of things. Like, you guys need to be better. And I honestly learned a lot about cops through this series. Like, when a police officer asks to meet with you, they won't, like, don't let them inside your house. Come outside your house and talk to them outside, because once you let them in, they can, like, they believe that, they take that as a sign to be, like, walking around your house and check it out. Like, that's what Millie says. And I was like, thanks, Millie, for letting me know. Like, hopefully, like, inshallah, that never happens to me. But I will be doing that from now on. Actually, inshallah, that does not happen to me. I don't know why I'm saying this, but now I know. Like, it's good to know. I just think, like, it's so irritating, because if this happened, and this is a very common thing that happens to so many women, unfortunately, like, some rando guy is just, like, following them around, and, like, yes, what if he does push me? Like, that's assault. Like, and now the police are just being so annoying about it. Like, this is your job. this is your job. Like, the taxes are going here. Like, the taxes that are not getting me Frida McFadden books in my library are going into your paycheck. So you better, you better be following up on people who are pushing me around. Like, even if they are stalking you, like, I don't know how true this is, because thankfully it's never happened to me, but in the books I've read and like the movies I've seen, when you have like a stalker, it's really hard to, like, the police never listen to you, because it's like, okay, you need so much evidence to like show them that you actually have a stalker and for them to actually do anything, which is just so, like, it should not be like that. So yeah, I didn't like that. And then also, like, now she's working, she gets fired from Amber because the baby's calling her mom and she has like ego issues and insecurity, whatever. So now she's working at some other housemaid place. She's working at some other rich person's place as a housemaid. And even there, I was like, this whole thing was just red flags. Like, why would you do this? Like, you can't ever talk to the wife. There's like blood everywhere. Like, that was just, it was just weird. Like, it's really not worth it. And especially after everything she went through in the first book, like, now I know it's not worth it. Like, this is another thing with Millie. Like, it's not like you need the money, like you need a job. Like, for the first book, I was like, okay, this makes sense. But for the second one, it was like, no, like, you're going to college. Like, she was dating this other guy who was like pretty well off and he was very into her. So like, just asking for a loan and paying back later. And by the way, like, she was with like that dude and I kind of felt bad for him because she obviously did not like him as much as he liked her. And she kind of just like tagged him along. And I think it was just because she was like lonely, because she was with Enzo. And by the way, they made so much sense together. I was like, wow, that whole scene in the first book where she was like trying to like get to know him, and he was like, I literally Google translated the stuff he said to her in Italian in this book, where she like kind of like gives him that offer, and he's like, that part was just so funny to me. But yeah, like, now Enzo is gone. He's gone back to Italy because his mom was like really sick, and so now she's on her own. So I was like, okay, she's lonely and she wants to like move on with her life, because she mentioned she's like 30, so she wants to really badly like to have a normal family. So I was like, okay, but still, like, is it worth it? And so yeah, she stays, I guess, because now she feels like morally obliged to help like Wendy out. And this just pissed me off so much, like, when we get to the plot twist of like, she set Millie up for murder, like, to take the fall of her husband, because she just wanted, like, she was just a narcissist. That's really what it was. And she just wanted her husband's money, and she plotted it the whole thing. Like, when we get to her part in the book, which she's like, step 1, meet a man who is single, clueless, and filthy rich. Like, I just felt so bad for the husband in this one, because he was actually a good guy. Step 6, figure out how to turn your husband into a man who deserves to die.
Don't laugh. You can't laugh.
She was so irritating, and she starts this whole, like, obviously they start some affair. Like, is it really a thriller book if the marriage is not horrible and the spouses don't hate each other? Like, if you're reading one that's not like that, then that's not a thriller. The whole time I was in Wendy's POV, she just really pissed me off so much. Like, she was so mean to the real Douglas. Like, she was so, like, calling him a fixer-upper, being like, he doesn't, like, take care of himself, which, okay, I get that. Like, if you're with somebody who, like, doesn't care about, like, their health and isn't, like, trying to be, like, fit, because I understand for a lot of people, like, that's a big thing, but still, like, she never even voiced that thing. Like, she just assumed that he should be like that. Like, at least tell him, like, could you try to do this? Like, Wendy was just something else. And then she's like, well, you want to give your money away to charity? Like, okay, fine, but why the whole thing? Like, she says so many things that was like, oh my god, like, she would irritate me so much. Like, why do we get to live in only one place? And then the husband's like, because we're not insane. Like, he was just a normal guy, and I hate when, like, normal people get caught up in, like, with the narcissist, because you don't even know it. Like, they're so good at hiding, and it was just so sad because he ends up dying anyway. Towards the end, when she got her karma, like, she deserved it. Like, it should have been even worse. And, you know, we think that it's Millie, but it's actually not. And I was like, I will say, Millie, she paved the way. Like, what can I say? She is final girl. Like, towards the end of the book, last page, Millie was like talking about, oh, Wendy, if she paid a little bit of attention to her husband, she would have known, oh, he has this heart issue, and she could have easily killed him off without doing this whole elaborate scheme. Which was, oh yeah, her, like, telling that guy she was having an affair with to, like, beat her up so it looks believable. Like, her, like, making it look like there was blood everywhere. Like, it was actually her own blood. Like, I was like, somebody put her on antipsychotics. Like, Nina, give her some of your antipsychotics, because this is crazy. And anyway, she was just insane. And towards the end, Millie's like, well, she made a really bad judgment call. She underestimated an extremely bad person. Or no, she underestimated an extremely dangerous person, me. And she paid the ultimate price. Period.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
I went into this being like, there's no way that I am going to fall for it again. Like, she got me book 1, she got me book 2, third time, like, not happening. And I was humbled because it happened again. Because I went into being like, okay, I don't trust anyone. But the thing is, like, when, at least for me, when I read, it's hard to like not make inferences. And I knew like, okay, that neighbor is weird. That housemaid, something's got to be going on with the housemaid. And I was like shocked at like the neighbors that they moved into because they were so like nosy. Like, who was it? Suzanne. She like was so irritating. Like, it was actually really funny when Millie was like voicing her like displeasure with Enzo, like with her like being very like too comfortable with him, like, and he was like, oh, Millie, like, she should be afraid of you, like, I'm afraid of you, like, everything that you've done. And I was like, period, like, you better not do this to my girl Millie. Because I knew it's like, again, is it a thriller book if the married couple doesn't have issues in their marriage and they don't have like some cheating allegations or like fears? No, it's not. Even our girl Millie could not escape from it. And I was just irritated because it's like Millie and Enzo, after everything, like, why are you guys not communicating? I was pretty surprised that Millie decided to like get a housemaid like after everything, and she even mentions like, oh, I don't know how comfortable I am, but the other neighbor, like, she just thrusts it upon them. Enzo was also like, well, you've always cleaned for other people, like, why don't you have someone to help you like do it now for you so you can just relax? And so she finally gives into it. Anyway, let's get into the crux of this, because I just didn't like that Millie and Enzo were like keeping secrets from each other, especially like, okay, so the whole thing was the neighbors were weird, and I felt really like, you know how their son, he started acting crazy, and in the beginning I was like, okay, maybe it is the genes at play, because, you know, Enzo was a part of the mafia or something, and Millie, obviously, I think she does have some like temperamental issues. I wouldn't say that it's like bad, but she is a little impulsive, like, or like she makes rash decisions, especially in her youth. But they were all justified. Like, you won't catch me hating on her. But anyway, like, their son was acting really weird, and she was like, that one scene where Millie like types into Google like how to know your son is a psychopath. But yeah, and then like both the neighbors were weird, and the reason that they got that house so cheap was also like suspicious. And they had that weird room. I still don't get that. Like, after everything was revealed, like, I don't get what that room was for. Like, did they ever say that? Like, I don't remember reading why they had that room. Okay, the thing with the neighbors, like Suzette and her husband, like, the things that they did to the boy, like, what was his name, Nico, like their son, I honestly feel like Frida, she like tamed this down, like PG, because when they started reading about, or when I got to the part where the wife was like threatening him and being like, if you say anything to anyone, and he was so scared, and we obviously get to like Ada's like POV, and she's like, oh, my brother is always crying, like, he's so sad, and he has like this huge like personality shift. I felt my heart drop, because I was like, oh my god, like, is this what I think it is? And I'm glad it wasn't that, because I was like, am I really about to read this? But he was like, the neighbors were like putting him in that room and making him watch, and like watching him play with the toys that were in that room, and he couldn't tell his parents about it, especially their parents. Like, they would have gotten the job done. Like, Millie would have come for them, and she even says that, like, I would have killed them myself if I found out what they were doing. The whole time I was thinking, okay, there's something wrong with the boy, but it was actually the girl who, you know, took things into her hand, and like her mom, she was that girl. Like, what can I say? I just don't like that Enzo was not as straightforward or like upfront with Millie about what was really going on. Like, he was helping out that housemaid because she was like in an abusive relationship, and that's why she was stealing from them. And I just like, why did you not tell Millie? Because it would have saved her in the long run of like all this anxiety. They used that reasoning of her having like some stress issue or like her heart problem, and I remember thinking like, okay, what was the point of this, like having some heart issue? But then I was thinking about it for a few days, and I was like, you know what, it makes sense that she has this heart problem, or she has like high blood pressure because of all the stressful situations she's been in. So that actually made sense, like why she had a heart issue, or because of her stress. And then Enzo was like, I didn't tell you because you were going through all this, I didn't want you to worry. Like, why didn't you tell her after it was done? This one I gave it like 3.5, just because Millie was not so much of the main player, even though like this family, like they take care of each other. I guess that's all I can say. But I think that Millie didn't do much because she just really wanted to have a normal life. And even like in Ada's POV, she's like, my mom is so normal and she's just a good mom. Like, that's all Millie wanted this whole series. Like, she just wanted to have her own family, a nice home. So yeah, these books truly just cemented me as a Frida McFadden fan. Like, I think I will read anything she writes because she's just so good at it. And I know she has a bunch of others, so we'll see which ones I read next.